Okay, so if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, feel free to do so. If you want to drop a link to your LinkedIn profile so we can network with you as well, feel free to do so. And if you want to represent your HBCU, drop that in the chat as well. I'm representing Hampton University, class of 1995. I'm an
Mm.
old man in here, yeah. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Will Moss. I'm the CEO and founder of HBCU Connect. Super excited to have you all for this special session with Gregory MacKenney, unlocking your potential, networking, mentorship, and coaching for career advancement. Super excited to hear from Gregory and also excited to hear from you all. We'll have a 30-minute presentation and we'll have 15 minutes of live Q&A. So if you have questions for Gregory after his presentation, you can feel free to drop those in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and you can come off of mute and you can ask your question. And I'll help Gregory with that by asking, by moderating those questions as they come in. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started unlocking your potential, networking, mentorship, and coaching for career advancement with Gregory MacKenney, founder and CEO, GM Titan and Associates. So Greg, if you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. Thanks, Will, for the opportunity and thanks for the introduction. I think it goes without saying, I can never say enough that I'm a proud graduate of Morgan State University. So representing the Bears in the house, the national treasure. I really am excited about this opportunity to share with you some of the things that I've learned over my career journey. I was working within corporate America for almost 26 years. And so what I'll share with you today is not just theory, but things that I've seen as useful ways to use networking, mentorship, and even coaching to really advance and progress my career. Now, we're all family, so I will try to treat this as a conversation, recognizing that I have slides, but I also want to make sure that you walk away really feeling three things. One, informed, two, inspired, and then three, that you're being invoked. And the invoke is to really move forward and taking action on some of the things that you'll learn from today's session. So from a topic standpoint, my intent today is to give you some basic understanding around those three topics. What are some of the benefits, the best practices of those topics? And then also there's a little bonus topic that I'll share with you as well. I won't reveal just at this point. But I really want to emphasize how important it is to really utilize all the tools that are available to you to really advance your career. You are the captain of your career ship. It really is up to you as to how that ship navigates the challenges that you will face. So let's start with networking, and what I'll do is I'll intertwine into each of these topics some personal stories from my experiences. So networking, in its simplest form, is really building and maintaining professional relationships with the exchange of something, whether it's information, advice, or support for mutual benefit. Just going to build this slide out. Importance, and these are just a few important elements to networking. I'm sure there are more that people could add to the list, but particularly now as you look at the challenging job market and landscape, networking can really provide you access to jobs that aren't even posted or opportunities that haven't been posted yet. It provides you an opportunity to stay abreast of the things that are happening within your industry of choice and preference, but it also starts to build your credibility and your brand with those that are in the communities or circles in your field that you want to engage with. So very important to utilize networking as a tool and be very intentional around the networking approach that you take. One of the things that's been very important for me with networking is really the fostering and building of relationships. I'll give you a little short story that the fact that I am presenting to you today, Willie will probably attest, it's a direct result of me networking with Will and the HBCU team. I attended the HBCU conference in June, and at that conference we had a networking event. And so I made it my purpose and intent to introduce myself to Will. And as we say, we kind of hit it off. And so from that point, I've just kind of stayed engaged with them. I even had the opportunity unexpectedly to even contribute to that conference in June by being on the stage speaker for one of the topics and just kind of filling in for someone that was a little bit delayed. And so networking can open up plenty of opportunities and doors for you as you go forward. So what are some of the benefits? I can tell you that having a professional circle and really being able to leverage that circle, not only from the standpoint of increasing your visibility and your brand, but also for people to recommend you or refer you to, their friends, their employers. Diversity. And so I know that you heard, if you attended the session earlier by Joanne, really talking about how do you stand out as a diverse candidate in this job market. Part of that is also getting diversity of perspective and insight and being able to demonstrate that. Really does offer support during career transitions and challenges. I'll share with you a little bit about my career choices. Most recently is I started GM Titan and Associates LLC just last month. And part of it was a choice in looking at, do I want to continue to work for a company or do I want to work for myself? And so having individuals like Will and other people that were in my network that were entrepreneurs really gave me the opportunity to learn from them, but also helped me make a much more informed decision. So some of the best practices, so kudos to everyone. You're here today. Now that you're here, network. Make sure that you're reaching out to people. Reach out to me. If you looked at the title slide, my LinkedIn QR code is there. Definitely reach out to me. I try to be very responsive. Um, Looking at other online platforms beyond LinkedIn and other social media platforms. HBCU Connect is another great way to network. And then really follow up. Don't just have that initial connection and then, as they say, ghost the individual. Really try to make sure that you're nurturing and building those relationships. And don't necessarily look at those relationships with a handout looking for what can be done for you, but also really bring something to the table. And last but not least, you heard me talk about my story a bit with Will and HBCU Connect. Make sure that you maintain those relationships beyond just this moment in time. So after today, what relationships have you formed, and what relationships are you going to be intentional around continuing to nurture in the coming weeks and months? Mentorship. So from a definition standpoint, is really around a relationship that's centered around development, where in many ways you're assigned or have a mentor that has either more experience than you, that can provide you guidance, feedback, and support. And that oftentimes may be a mentor within your specific area of expertise. If you're in leadership, sometimes that mentor could be another leader that may not be necessarily within your function or responsibility. The importance of mentorship. So I can tell you when I started as an engineer very early in my career journey, I was assigned a mentor. And for me, I really appreciated having that mentor because he not only taught me, the technical aspects of, how do you be an engineer within a company, but he also shared with me some of the non-technical aspects of how do you actually move and facilitate yourself to be successful in the company. And so that was invaluable for me coming out of university because, those are things that I didn't necessarily learn per se, in university. Yes, Morgan is the national treasure, but there's just some things that you're going to have to learn by experience. The other thing is, for me, I had a mentor, and it was an interesting story. One of the mentors that I had in my career was a mentor that became my mentor because I was unsuccessful in getting a job with him. And, he gave me feedback as to, why I wasn't selected as a candidate, but I asked him at that moment, would he be willing to be my mentor? That conversation really changed my career trajectory within the company. And that mentoring relationship evolved. But he was very instrumental in helping me be clear around what it is that I wanted to do in the company, and then also start to navigate a path as to how I got there. So some of the benefits, and as you notice, I'm not trying to cover every bullet, but trying to speak to it in some regards. The mentoring relationship is very intimate and is very important as to, how do you go about choosing and selecting a mentor. Trust is going to be a key component of that. But you want someone that, that's been where you're trying to go that can give you real life practical advice. For me, that mentor was a key source of support. It was my go-to person. It was a person that, was kind of on my helpline that I could call and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Would you be willing to help me? And you heard me talk a little bit around, mentorship can lead to other opportunities and other relationships that could benefit you in terms of your career trajectory. So some of the best practices, definitely be intentional around what type of mentor you're looking for. If you're looking to, get a career in whatever field, look for mentors that are in that field. If you're looking for advancement in terms of moving from being an individual contributor to a manager, look for mentors that are managers that may have gone along a similar path of advancement within the organization. Be very proactive. But also be respectful of the mentor that you're reaching out to. What I often tell my mentees is, if we're going to meet, send me an agenda in advance. I want to make sure that we maximize the time that we have together. So you want to be prepared, you want to be proactive, but you also want to be respectful of their time so you can really maximize the time together. And be very clear. One of the things that I learned very early on my journey is you got to set goals and be clear about what your goals are, and then be able to share those goals. Share those goals with your mentor. For those that are still working, share those goals with your manager. I even say, share those goals with your manager's manager, and then be clear around what are your expectations with your mentor, and also what expectations you may have with your managers and others in terms of being able to support you as you're pursuing your career aspirations. Now, this one is very, very important. Be open to feedback. Be someone that can, accept constructive feedback. Say thank you for the feedback. All feedback is good feedback, quote unquote. But most importantly is, be willing to take action on the feedback that's given. This is very important in terms of not only are you going to get value out of the relationship, but also will that relationship grow? People are much more willing to engage and help those that they see are taking their advice to heart and really putting it to action. So coaching, so my business, we didn't talk about this at the intro because really today's session is not about me, but I am an executive and leadership coach as well as a business coach. And so for me, as I continued on my career trajectory, when I got to a certain level of position within the company, it was almost guaranteed that I was going to get assigned a coach. And the thing with the coach was very specific to working on a specific area, skill, or behavior, and then working together to really define an action plan as to how you're going to improve in that specific area of behavior. So for me, it becomes a very defined and structured approach. It is one where you're looking to someone to really be that, if you're familiar with sports training or if you're familiar with physical fitness training, it's really having a trainer that's going to encourage you at times, that's going to challenge you, but it's also going to help you put together routines so that you can become more disciplined and successful at the goal or skill that you're trying to improve. So the importance here often is really looking at how do I address skill gaps, or it could even be performance related. There's an area where I'm not performing where I need to be. In some cases, it could be addressing areas that you're looking to grow and development. So it could be purely developmental coaching. And oftentimes the coaching is one-on-one. Likewise, also with the mentoring, whereas the networking clearly is you're working with multiple people in terms of building relationship and gaining and sharing insights. Enhances self-awareness. And so one of the things that we often do with coaching is what we call a 360 feedback. And so that's getting feedback with those that you work with, your manager, if you're a people manager, those that report to you, and really trying to understand where you may have blind spots, where are the areas that you're strong, and really helps you to understand, how you're perceived within the organization or the entity that you work. Once you know those things, now you can really be able to identify where the areas that I want to focus. Sometimes it's not always focusing on your weaknesses. You can also be focusing on your strengths. And so really having that insight and information really does allow you to have a growth mindset to continue to grow and develop as a leader or continue to develop and grow in whatever area that you're focusing on with respect to your coaching. Provides accountability and measurable progress. So you heard me describe this with respect to like a personal trainer. There's accountability here, right? Because, in many cases, coaching is something that is a paid service. And so you want to make sure that you maximize your return. And so there's definitely a high degree of accountability. And if the coaching is really good, there should be some measurable progress along the way and some measurable progress at the end of the coaching engagement, say whether or not you indeed improved. So some of the benefits, like I said, is very specific to specific areas, and so you're very much focused. Oftentimes, it may be on one or two areas. So definitely an opportunity to focus and elevate your performance in a given area. Yeah, there is often very structured, and you're getting regular feedback. Feedback not only from your coach, but also feedback from those that you're working with. Working with a coach can really help you clarify and identify what your goals are. When I became an executive, I with my executive coach, we talked not only about the things I can do to improve now as an executive, but we also talked about what are the things that I could be doing now to better position me for moving higher into the organization, whether that's moving to the C-suite or where I am today in terms of running my own company. And then the motivation and support. I mean, it's always great to have a cheerleader, right? It's always great to have another person in your village supporting you on. There's a topic a little bit later today around resilience in this job market. This is another way of really creating an environment that helps drive and facilitate resilience, as because undoubtedly you will have challenges. I'm quite sure we can all attest, that we're facing challenges today as we see it. So some of the best practices, if you are interested in looking at a coach, really seek out coaches that are certified or experienced, and really certified and experienced based upon the areas in which you're looking for coaching support. Be very clear around what your goals are and what you hope to achieve. And in some cases, you can consult with a coach to help really clarify that as you go forward. And you heard this a bit earlier around mentorship. It holds here true with coaching as well. You have to be coachable. Be receptive to constructive feedback. Challenge yourself. One of the things I often tell those that I'm coaching is you have to have courage to be coached. You have to have humility to be coached. And then you have to be disciplined in terms of saying that I'm going to, take action on the feedback as well as feed forward, suggestions and things that you can do to, to become better at whatever the skill or behavior that you're looking to improve. There's a time commitment. I remember when I was, leading the youth ministry. You're probably saying, Greg, you're pulling all these different stories, but I remember a poem that one of our youth had actually wrote, and the title of the poem was "No Deposit, No Return." And so, really, what you get out of it is going to be based upon what you put into it. And so that is something that, really, yet again, being the captain of your career ship is really going to be about what are you investing in you to develop and grow, and how are you leveraging the tools and resources around you to facilitate that. And then, like I said, this is not something that you just kind of do, check the box and go away. It's ongoing because you're talking about how do you build behavioral change? How do you build really what I would say is transformation? And the difference between transformation and change is transformation means you're not going back to what you were before. And so those are just some things to think about with respect to best practices. And so I shared with you there was going to be a bonus topic that was not in the title line. And this is one that, to be quite honest, I didn't learn about really probably until halfway through my career, which was sponsorship. And so sponsorship is really about when someone that's in a position of senior leadership or in a very influential role that can really support your career advancement. That's the person that's advocating for you, that's speaking on your behalf in the rooms that you're not in. And so for me, this is something that I didn't learn. I wish I knew coming out of school that someone told me about this. But the thing with sponsorship, and you'll hear me talk about it, it's not something that you can just say, hey, to someone, be my sponsor. There's some work to get to sponsorship, but this has probably been one of the biggest things that really elevated my career to the level that I was able to achieve within a company. And so sponsorship is really what I would say is one of the, I don't know if I can call it a best kept secret, but it is something that you should be very mindful and really be thinking about how do I build sponsorship and how do I leverage sponsorship in my career journey. Think I'm doing okay time-wise, Wilson. Being very mindful of that. And so there's the importance of sponsorship. As I talked about, is absolutely critical, particularly if you're looking to move up in a company, but even also you can have sponsorship outside of the company. And as you're looking for opportunities, sometimes these sponsors can be people that you may be looking to as references. And so be very, very intentional around thinking about who can be telling your story and promoting you on your behalf. And like I said, it was, a game changer for me in terms of getting to into an executive position. I'm pretty certain without the sponsorship, it wouldn't have happened. So I hit on some of the benefits here. I'm just gonna build the slide out. Um, but definitely sponsorship will open up opportunities for promotions within companies, will open up opportunities when you're looking at competing for positions. Oftentimes, some of those networks and friends that you have or the relationships you have, some of those people can actually serve as a sponsor for you. Gaining greater visibility. My sponsor opened up doors for me where he provided opportunities for me to present to certain people, to really have a chance to, demonstrate my value and my brand to, some of the other decision makers in the company. They can introduce you to other people and expand your network. And then, one of the things that if and I know I'm talking to an audience of those that are in college and also those that are in industry, organizational politics, they are real. Every organization has a set of norms and a set of politics, but sponsors and in some cases mentors can help you kind of navigate those politics and really understand how to move within the space to be successful. Like I said, it doesn't come for free. You got to do your job. You got to do your job well. You have to be someone that is, looked upon favorably and can be counted on in terms of delivering to their commitments. Be very intentional. You heard me talk about the intentionality of relationships. Be very intentional in thinking about, who are my sponsors, who could be my sponsors. One of the things I used to do with my sponsor was, meet with him on a regular basis. We would meet every 3 months and really talk about, what are the things that I'm working on, where I think they may be able to help, and then also where could I help them. Yet again, like in a mentor relationship, it should be bi-directional. And then one thing that I do tell everyone is just be very clear about what your career goals are and share those goals. Share those goals with your mentor. Share those goals with your manager. Share those goals with people that are in your network. Once people know what your career goals and aspirations are, they can be in a better position to help you. One last thing I'll share, because oftentimes, people say, "Well, what can I do to get ahead?" I keep getting overlooked for promotions. I keep getting overlooked for opportunities. Sometimes you have to take on challenging assignments or take on things that are outside of your normal scope of responsibility. This gives you an opportunity, one, to show that you're passionate, committed to, really making an impact, but also give you a chance to showcase yourself in a different light or to showcase other abilities that they may not be aware that you have. So it really does become a chance for you to demonstrate, what you're capable of. You saw this on the other slide as well, and you don't have to take a lot of notes. I will make these slides available, to everyone, but there's something to be said for saying thank you. That goes a long way. I can tell you as, being a coach, being a mentor, being coached and being mentored, the feeling of being told thank you and knowing that you're making a difference or an impact on someone is invaluable. And so for me, having the opportunity to really change the trajectory of someone's life so that they could have a better life and their family can have a better life and the community can have a better life is why I do what I do. So some of the key takeaways from this is be very intentional around utilizing networking, mentorship, coaching, and like I said, we threw in the sponsorship as well to really drive and dictate how do you want your career to unfold. Be very proactive. As I said, don't let today be, yes, I'm going to do all these things, but create a plan. Have a daily checklist, have a weekly checklist, a monthly checklist, and saying, what have I done today to expand my network? Do I have a mentor? If you don't have a mentor, I would strongly encourage you to get one. And at some point, ask yourself, is there value in me getting a coach? Know who your sponsors are. If you don't have sponsors, you have an assignment, get sponsors. But be very intentional. And for those that are starting their journey, whether it's going into internships as well, even as an intern, get a mentor, build relationships with the companies that you're working with. Do well, do exceedingly well because you want to come back, but that also builds the opportunity for you to have a future opportunity when you graduate. And so that's really it. I mean, the call to action is, what are you going to do now? You have the definition, you have some of the best practices. How are you going to go forward in utilizing networking, mentoring, coaching, sponsorship to really get the career that you desire and that you deserve? I wouldn't say try to do everything, but just come up with a very short list of what you can commit yourself to doing today. Revisit that list. I would even say share that list with someone that you trust and ask that person to be your accountability partner. And so I know I may have said a number of things. If you're interested in continuing the dialogue and conversation, I'm more than willing to have some further discussion. My LinkedIn QR code is there. At this point, Will, I think I'm done my formal presentation. Let's open it up for Q&A.
Okay,
And what I'll do is
so
I'll take down the presentation.
okay. So if you have questions, we'll go ahead and take some of those questions. Feel free to use the within Zoom, there's what's called the React. And what you can do in the React or reaction is you can use the raise hand feature. And that way we can kind of see who has questions first and present those questions to Greg. The other way is if you have questions, drop them in the chat. But awesome presentation, Greg. Let me while folks are kind of getting their questions together, let me ask you your career journey
Mm.
coming from Morgan State University. What was your major or background at Morgan State, and then what was your career journey after you graduated from Morgan?
And I'm assuming I should do the abridged version here, Will, right? So, so,
However you like.
so my degree was in electrical engineering from Morgan State. Upon completion of that, I pursued my master's degree at Cornell University in electrical engineering as well. And I was recruited by Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
And so Hewlett Packard paid for my graduate degree. And so when I completed graduation, it was right at the time that Hewlett Packard and Agilent split, and I had an opportunity to decide which company I would go with. And so I went with Agilent. All of my internships, I had two internships with HP, were with the side of the company I was going to be Agilent. Once I did that, I was in the company. I started as an engineer. I was one of those people that loved engineering, said when I grow up, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to do engineering work. That lasted about 4 years. And what happened, Will, was there was a senior manager that asked me, did I ever consider going into management? And it was based upon, yet again, one of the things I talk about is the best practice, how you show up at work. And what I often tell my mentees is you're always interviewing. People are always watching you. And so she observed some things and said, hey, I really think, you would be a great manager. You should go into management. That's how I got into management. And then I just had different management roles, from technical management roles, roles in quality, roles in R&D. Up until the point when I left the company, I was a vice president and general manager. I was running a 500 plus $1 million business. We had some restructuring, and I left the company as a result of restructuring in July. You heard me mention, Will, in June. I attended one of your conferences, and one of the topics at the conference was entrepreneurship. I mean, you even have that topic to some extent on the agenda today. And
Yes.
so I was trying to, figure out what my next move was going to be. I also had a coach. My coach said, hey, I really think you should think about this coaching thing. I think you would be great at coaching. And
Mhm.
so I had some time. I said, okay, I'm gonna skill up. And so I started, I'm getting my coaching certification.
Mhm.
And as they say, the rest is history, albeit it's a short history. From the time that I attended your conference to the time I started a business was like 3 or 4 months.
Awesome. Okay,
No,
so
thanks for the question.
for sure, we're getting some questions to come into the chat. If you want to ask your question on audio and video, just use the raise hand feature. But I'm going to start pulling some of the questions I see in the chat. So one of the first questions here is from Joy Gibbs. Wonderful presentation. I do have a question. If you're starting out in your career in a different location,
Hmm.
what advice do you have in getting a mentor?
Oh, great question. So a couple of things I would consider is if you're going to be part of a team, look at people that are on that team that may be doing the job that you're going into. And be very clear as to what type of mentor you're looking for. You're looking for a mentor that can help you be successful in your current role. If you're looking for someone with a specific skill set. And so going back to what's your goal and your intent of mentorship, that will help you identify who may be good mentors. And also, it doesn't have to be a mentor within the organization that you're going into or that you're going to work at. If yet again, going back to your goal, are there other people in your broader network? This is why networking is important that may have the skill or the capability that could provide you mentorship going forward. Then the last piece is it someone that you believe you can build the right relationship with and trust? Mentorship is really built upon that. You heard me talk about humility and courage. Sometimes your mentor is going to see you at your best moment. They're also going to see you at your worst moment.
All right, so we got another question here from Asta. It says, "Hey Greg, thank you for your time today. How do you articulate your goals if you aren't fully sure where you want to be in 5 years,
Mm,
or if you can even achieve that particular goal?"
mm. No, great question, and it's interesting that 5 year question just reminds me of the conversation I had with a mentor at one time. I think first and foremost is if you're not in a position to be able to articulate that, that's where a mentor or someone that you can possibly talk to that you can trust to say, hey, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. One thing I would say is think about what your passions are. What do you like? What do you see that others are doing that you would be interested in doing? So that may be one thing. And then I would say also be intentional about setting a goal to set a goal. And it's okay to not to know now. And I would tell you, even when I started as an engineer, I had no goal or aspiration to go into leadership. None. All right. But I learned on the job, I learned, by what others saw in me, that was a potential path. And so I would say,
Okay.
it's okay not to know. But I would say, definitely tap into, what you enjoy, what your passions are. What do you see that others are doing that you're curious about? And then being very intentional around setting a time frame for at least trying to get a first pass at a goal. Get a mentor.
All right. Shavonda, I see you have your hand raised. If you'd like to ask your question.
Hi, Gregory. Thank you so much. It's really good. Really good. And congratulations on your entrepreneurship journey.
Thank you.
Um, Mine's a little different. Um, my question is to you. Okay, give you a little background. I was in corporate leadership for over 16 years at Cox Automotive. I
Hmm.
jumped into the entrepreneurship realm probably like 19 years ago. So
Okay.
full-time entrepreneurship was very good, successful. Um, Now it's like I'm an empty nester. This is another phase. I got involved in corporate, when I was in my 20s. So I was
Hmm.
blessed to have some amazing leaders in my life. Now, now I'm like, what do I do with all that? I'm not into. Now I'm thinking about going back to corporate, which
Yeah, yeah,
I know what's going on in the economy.
sure.
And so I just don't know what to do with myself, to be honest with you, because my goals were to build out my own company, my own culture,
Hmm.
right? But I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that right now. Right now,
Yeah,
I
sure.
really wanted to get back into corporate and what are some ways you can go by? Because I built my whole foundation and my customer database while I was in corporate, and that's how I
Mhm.
built my entrepreneurship journey.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but now I'm just trying to do it in reverse, I guess. Uh,
Here's maybe a couple of thoughts, and thanks, Shavonda, for the question. I'll give you a couple of thoughts, and I'll give you a little bit about the journey and process that I took, right? So a couple of thoughts is know your why. What's your why right now, right?
right.
Why do you want to go into corporate? Why do you want to perhaps have your own business? So I would perhaps start there, right? And for those who may not understand what I'm saying, what's your motivation, for whatever you're trying to do. The other thing I would say, recognizing, and you'll probably hear this throughout the fair today, the job market is a challenging one. Even if you want to go into corporate, most people are seeing long periods of time that it takes to get into corporate. And then even going into corporate, be clear about what companies that you would be interested in going into. Make sure you do your homework and your research on company culture, right? Is the company one that's going to fit with where you want to be right now? And so what I did, Shavonda, is I went to the HBCU Connect Fair. And I'm keep plugging my guy Will here, right? But it gave me different insight and perspective, and I made some connections with some entrepreneurs there as well. But I came back and said I'm going to sit down and do a plan, right? What I want to do in terms of growing professionally, but I made it more holistic. I looked at what I wanted to do growing personally, financially. There was a topic at the last HBCU Connect conference around wealth and the things to do there. And so I looked at it holistically and said, Greg, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And then from that started kind of strategize. And part of my strategy was to go out and learn. So I went out to learn, what does it mean to have a coaching business? I even looked at franchising. I had met with a franchise advisor and saying, hey, is that a potential path for me? I kept the door open for corporate and started to engage with, people in corporate and engaging with recruiters. I was contacting executive recruiters. And so I was really trying to get as much insight and perspective to help me make an informed decision. And so that's what I would say. Really sit down and think about your why, your motivation, do your homework. And then at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm learning, and you can see a little bit of gray in my beard, I'm getting up in age. I was really looking for what's going to fulfill me. All right. Where can I be my whole authentic self? Where was I going to be happy? And was I operating within my purpose?
All
So I
right.
may have said a lot there.
That's
Siobhan, I mean, and,
good.
and,
That's
and
really
definitely feel
good. That's
free.
really good.
If you want to reach out,
Um,
feel free. I mean,
I
I would
definitely want
love
to
to
reach
have the
out.
conversation.
Absolutely. And I would definitely be reaching out to you. Because I came from a great company. I don't
Hmm.
think they just make those like that anymore, but I don't know. Well, Cox Automotive was
Hey,
huge and it's
well,
autotrader.com. So
let
yeah,
me speak something into your existence. If they don't make them like that anymore, you make it.
create it.
Yes, you create it.
Thank
Hey, we
you so
appreciate
much.
the
And I'll be
we
reaching
appreciate.
out. Appreciate you.
Hmm.
Yep, thank you for
Thank
the
you,
question.
Will.
You're
All
welcome.
right. Bye bye.
Okay. So we got about 5 more minutes. I see some more questions in the chat. This one's from Christian Hudson. How do you go about asking someone to be a sponsor, and
Mm,
how do you reply if they decline?
yeah. What I would suggest is I would not go and ask someone, can you be my sponsor? All right. I mean, because sponsorship is a whole nother level. What I might suggest is starting with mentorship. And I'll let you in on a little secret, and Will, you can confirm or negate with what I say. Most people in position of leadership and power love to talk about themselves. All right. They love to share their story. And so one way that I often, reach out to people say, hey, I noticed that you've did these things, or I noticed something. I'd be very interested to learn more about your story. Would you be willing to spend some time? And I would say, 15 minutes. Would you be willing to spend 15 minutes with me? So you have it, and most often people will say yes, right? Because they love telling their story, and they like talking about themselves. That becomes the opening. So once you hear their story, and now granted, it got to be someone that you think is a potential mentor. then you can say, wow, I really love your story. I'd be interested in learning, how I could possibly do that. Would you be willing to, to maybe share your tips and some of the things that you did? You would be amazed as to how gracious leaders become. Now, that's not all. Let me put that disclaimer out there. But that to me has been a very useful way in opening again. I even sent messages like that on LinkedIn to executive recruiters. And I wasn't saying, hey, can you find me a job, right? I was sending a message saying, hey, I'm interested in learning what your perspectives are on the current job market. I want to share some insights with you, and I'd love to hear your insights. I would tell you, of out of 10 people I sent that message to, 7 responded. And so it's often how you approach, and approach not necessarily just asking for something. You notice what I said in it as well is I want to also share my insights. And so also to
Can I
offer.
throw something in there?
For sure.
A big part of those 7 people responding is they probably looked at your profile to see who you are.
Oh, no doubt. No, but
So, so to all the candidates out there, if you're on LinkedIn and you have a blank LinkedIn profile that you haven't spent any time on, you might not get any responses. But to Greg's point, you'll paired with you reaching out, you want to make sure that your presence and your profile is appropriate, and that they're going to look at it before they respond to you. They're going to say, "Who are you?"
yes, no doubt. I think that's a great point. Well, and I would expand it to say, you heard me mention you're always interviewing. Your LinkedIn is your interview. That's your first initial interview. And so you want that LinkedIn profile to truly reflect who you are and what your goals and aspirations are.
Okay, so got a couple more minutes here, and I see a question. Can you quickly, like real quickly, delineate the difference between a sponsor and a mentor?
Ha ha. Here's the easiest way I can probably delineate that. A sponsor has the authority and the influence to create opportunities for you.
Hmm.
A mentor may not have that, right? A mentor is really oftentimes maybe a peer or someone at your level. And so that's a way I would delineate the two. Now, what I will share though is relationships can change. And so the mentor that I had when I didn't get the job ended up becoming my sponsor. And so they can evolve. It's
Hmm.
like with any relationship. The relationships are not always necessarily intended to be the same. And so this is why you heard me say very early about networking, be very intentional around the relationships that you build, right? And I'm keep putting my man Will on the spot because I think we've grown to a certain place. I tell Will, what do you need me to do? How can I help you? I don't ask Will, help me. All right. One, because I'm a proud HBCU graduate and I want to do everything I can to help my HBCU family. But two, we made a connection. I buy into what he's trying to do. I want to help.
Appreciate that too. But yeah, to your point, like I mentor different people, and one of the longest standing mentoring relationships I have with a young man is someone that started out just like you said. He asked me about my story and what I could share with him about my story. So it got me talking about
Yeah.
myself. And then that converted into he listened to me talking to other people about how when you go to create that relationship, you want to bring something to the table where it's not about what you can get from them, it's what value you can offer to them
Yes.
to build that relationship. He listened to that and he did that with me. So
Yeah.
he started like, everything from helping me clean out my garage to whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it paid off because I was giving him knowledge, insight, and everything. So the points that you are bringing to the table in your presentation resonate, and we really appreciate you sharing that. So Gregory, before we go, if you want to tell folks how they can connect with you and some of the things you're doing with your business and how they might, leverage that, feel free to do so.
Oh, LinkedIn for sure. Right. And if you want, well, I can put back up the slide with my QR code if that would help, right?
Great idea. So that's the QR code to your LinkedIn profile?
Yes. And then when you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see the button to go to my website.
All right, so I'm gonna grab the link real fast.
And like I
So
said, Will, I will send you the slides. You can
okay.
distribute to, everyone that's attended the conference, whether they attended this session or not. Because the other thing for me, Will, this is kind of where my passion and purpose is. I just want to help. All right. And so if what I share today helps you, my only ask is that you share it with someone else. To really make sure that we're doing everything that we can to equip people that look like us, that have the backgrounds like us, to be successful. What the things that we experience, the things that we do in life are not just for us. And so I really want to say, definitely replicate that, share it broadly, share it with everyone. But this is something that is core to what I believe is my purpose.
Well, with that, I made you the host of this meeting, so in case folks want to stick around and ask any more questions,
I'm
as
here.
much as you have time,
Sure.
I have to depart to our next session, our lunchtime keynote. But let me thank you again for presenting and
Thank you.
sharing all of this great information. And yes, we will share the recording and your slide deck with the candidates post event. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna head out, but I'll leave the session open in case anyone wants to connect with you.
I
Hi,
say
good
that
morning.
oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. No, go ahead. No, please.
Hi, good. It's morning. It's still morning. Good morning. My name is
Good morning.
Halcyon Williams. So I am back in the job market. Previously, I was at PwC where I was a talent consultant or HR business partner. I was there for 7 years. The last role that I was in was a manager, and I was looking for opportunity to advance.
Mhm.
Basically, the market isn't great, so attrition is low. So I took a leap of faith and went over to a company called Elevance Health, and last in, first out due to an organizational restructure.
Mhm.
So I believe I'm doing all of the right things, reaching out to all of my network across LinkedIn, applying for jobs where I see I am a fit of at least 70%, leveraging ChatGPT, running my
Mhm.
resume through ChatGPT aligned to the job description to
Mhm.
understand how I can add value, what aligns, and at what percentage am I qualified for the job. So even if I don't think I'm qualified, I'm applying anyway. Um, just any tips or suggestions that you may have. I'm reaching out to hiring managers if I'm able to find them. I'm reaching out to the recruiters.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and any help or tip you can give as I'm back in this journey, given the
Sure.
market where we are in the calendar year.
No, absolutely. And I truly empathize with you, right? Because I was in the market and I haven't completely taken myself out, so I can truly relate to what you're saying. Couple thoughts. One, I know there's a session later today around strategy and resilience in the job market, so I would strongly suggest attending that. I think the other thing too is really you have your networks, and looking at, is there another way to think about how do I leverage my networks? All right. There was a question in the Q&A around professional organizations. I don't know if you're involved with a professional organization, but that's another vehicle by which you can network. And oftentimes they have some ability to to influence, right, through their relationships and things of that nature. But the other one thing that I'll say, and I'll just say it, right. The first word that you had, I think one of the words that stood out with your question was around faith. And what I would say is, don't let your faith waver. What I would say is, continue to trust in Him. All right.
Mhm.
And ask Him for guidance and wisdom. All right. And some of that is also, for the relationships you have. Lead me to people, put people in my life that can help me on, my journey. And so this is another piece of me where I am a person of faith. And, what I've done over my career is only a testament to his goodness. And so in the seasons that we're in the valley, it's only a test. All right. And
Yeah, it's a
so
test, definitely.
right. But it's nothing wrong with what you're doing, right?
Mhm.
And it may just be that those are not the right jobs for you.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, and what I've been hearing as I've been having my conversations with him is to wait. Like, this literally just happened. Wait, allow yourself some grace.
Oh,
Um, we're at the end of the year. So, being in HR, I know that this is when the layoffs happen, right? Right before Thanksgiving, they want to put a pause. And then
yeah,
we tend to see another wave of rifts in Q1. And then maybe by mid Q1 is when we start to see some jobs opening up. So I am getting the message to wait, but there's a lot of fear and anxiety that comes with that, just given my situation. I kind of want to just
sure.
jump back in and have something.
Yeah.
Um, but no,
Yes.
it makes sense, everything that you shared.
And to be quite honest, this is where, give yourself some grace. That's natural to have that fear and
Hmm.
anxiety, right? And particularly if you're accustomed to, working, right? If you're also thinking about, well, if I don't have this source of income, these things will happen,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Uh, but but
absolutely.
but yet again, because I'm speaking to a person of faith, all right?
Mhm.
There's enough in the book to help us during those moments of anxiety, those moments
Mhm.
of fear and doubt. All right. And so I would say, now I'm probably talking a little too much and apologize if there are other people in here that may not be people of faith, but this is core and dear to who I am. When I was in a similar boat as you, so I was essentially a workforce manager in July. And of course, all the thoughts go through your mind around what's going to happen now.
Kids, yeah,
Right.
bills.
One
Mhm.
thing I would say, by the grace of God, that I took some steps in preparation, right? So that's one. But it gave me a time to really reflect upon one, who I was,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And looking at what do I do to be a better version of me. Two, whose I was, and so my relationship with him went
Mhm.
to another level, all right?
Okay.
And so for me, it was looking at the holistic piece, even the physical piece. Am I taking care of my temple, right?
Yeah.
Which includes your mind, right? And so all
Mhm.
those things. So I
Mhm.
looked at it holistically and saying, okay, what am I doing holistically to become the best version of me, so I could walk in your purpose? And that's the other thing I guess you heard me say is I've really been focused on what's my purpose, because if you're operating your purpose, then yes, you'll still have the challenges, but you're operating with that strength, with that gift,
Yeah,
and
and everything will
everything.
align.
Yeah. And it won't be without trials and tribulation, right? It won't be without tests.
That's true.
But remember, you already have the victory.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he is always on time, right? I'm just reading what they put in the chat.
Something going on with the camera. Mhm.
And I'll go to the top of the hour, and then I'll close out the session. But thank you for your engagement. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the chats. Thank you for the words of encouragement.
Thank you. I will drop and get back into the chat. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of
Sure.
the day ahead. Bye bye.
I think Aaliyah, I don't know if Aaliyah's still on call. I think I answered the question around professional organizations helpful for networking. I'm involved with several professional organizations, and what I've started to look at is even new organizations, given that my career changed. And so different coaching organizations, leadership development organizations. So that is a very strong source of networking. HBCU Connect, you heard me plug them, right? Today's event. Really take advantage of these opportunities where your paths are crossing many other people and many people that may be in a similar position, have a similar background that you have something in common with. Increase your village. Marilena?
Yes, hi. It's actually, yeah, we're still morning. Good morning,
Yes.
Gregory. Thank you for the presentation. I have a quick question that sort of was mentioned lightly by the person who spoke before, related to the ATS and just Gen AI usage of resumes.
Mm,
Just because I'm a little bit, I think, conflicted is what it is with what's like the true reality.
sure.
I've had I got laid off in June, July. When I first started updating my resume, I hadn't been unemployed for like 3 years, so I had to dust up the resume.
Hmm.
I started using Gen AI for for my submissions, but in that meantime, I was able to get referred to a service through my friend from the military that helps with like job applications and whatnot.
Mm,
And in that moment, they gave me access to an ATS system. I believe I'm using JobScan.
okay.
So when when I started using that ATS system and comparing the results that I had from Gen AI, in that case, I wasn't getting a high percentage of compatibility.
Sure.
So I'm a little bit conflicted as to what resource one should really use. Because,
Uh-huh.
there's this push for Gen AI and ChatGPT, to supposedly help you get
Mm,
these interviews, but
right.
I didn't see anything, or at least when
Sure.
I would run them through ATS, it would say that it was a low score. So I'm like,
Mm,
that just doesn't compute for me. So I'm like, now I'm
sure.
not even sure what to really do.
Right.
Mind you, after that, like I've started then, like using some of the Gen AI terminology and, using the ATS keywords that it says that are, important for this job posting. But
Hmm.
and actually I've seen a little bit more traction. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what has been your experience? What do you see is really, I guess, the key to success in that regard? Just
Hmm.
because I feel like there's a lot of conflicted information about yes,
Sure.
use Gen AI, it'll get you closer versus then when you submit, you don't hear anything back.
Yeah. So full disclaimer that this is not an area of my expertise, but I can give you what my experience has been. Um,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I can
but I
understand.
will also suggest that I know there's a session later today around crafting your resume. That if you haven't signed up for, I would strongly suggest that you sign up for. So interesting. I was laid off. I don't even know why I use the term laid off. I was workforce managed, right, in July. And so I actually had a service through a company called Lee Hecht and Her or something like that, LHH. And we had went through different workshops on how to make your resume better to get through the AI screening. And so there were some things that they talked about in terms of, format, and other things in terms of, using what was defined as SOAR stories with all your job experience. And SOAR stood for situation, obstacle, or objective, what action you took, and what were the results. And really making sure you had those things in there, as well as I think someone else talked about a little bit earlier, or catering their resume to the job position, and being intentional around what keywords that you would use in your resume. And so in some cases, the resume would have to be adjusted based upon the job you were applying for. Now, the difference between AI tools, a lot of that is probably associated with the different modeling that they've used and how they validate a tool in terms of what the output will be. And so in terms of what that validation looks like and, which one is the better one, I don't know. But I think if you take five of those tools, you'll probably get five different results because they're not built off of the same logic and off of the same models.
So what was your experience in regards to applying and going through
I
that
did well. See, in my
before
situation,
you decided,
yeah.
to create your own business?
So for me, it was a little bit different because I didn't apply for anything,
Okay,
and
it was
it
just
wasn't because
recruited.
wasn't interested in the job market or was going to open my own business. I didn't apply because many of the positions that I was interested in weren't posted. So you heard me mention the
Okay,
hidden job market. The level positions
correct.
that I would apply for were executive or C-suite level positions. And so those would not necessarily be posted on the job board. And so it wasn't like a
Hmm.
normal application process. You heard me mention I was reaching out to executive recruiters.
Hmm.
And that's why I was doing that, because I knew that the positions would be held by them and they wouldn't be visible to the public.
Correct. Thank you so much for that feedback.
Sure. Well, we're at the time. Thanks everyone for your attention. Like I said, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I try to be very, very responsive. And hopefully it was something that I said today that at least gives you something new that you may consider or try. Thank you. Take care, everyone.